And Paul says, that's not what God has given us as the power of God to reach both of these people. Instead of, okay, well, I got to come up for a sign. Okay, well, what about this sign? What about that sign? I got to come up with a logical construct. Okay, well, what about this theory? Well, what about that theory? What about this chain of logic? If that's the way you go in trying to preach and teach and share the gospel of Jesus Christ, you will be frustrated. And it isn't because there isn't logic to the gospel or to the revelation of God, or that there isn't a sign. The problem is your brain isn't big enough. It's there, but your brain and my brain is not big enough. It's supra-logic. But what is the power of God? What is the power of God? The gospel. The gospel? Well, what's the gospel, Pastor? God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but live eternally, by having faith in the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross and believing that he was raised from the dead to bring life. That's the gospel. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. Man, can't you build some really nice big thing around that would impress those that are looking for some logic and wisdom? Can't you make it cooler and with some oohs and ahs to it for those that are looking for a sign? Don't have to. Because you see, it is the Holy Spirit of God who draws people. To those who are the called, man, the power of God, it's the revelation of God is what's changed us. It's what's changed you. Signs are not bad, and God has shown signs. Wisdom is not bad, and logic is not bad, and philosophy and theology is not bad. Absolutely not. But it's not what will touch a person's life. It's not what will pierce the encasement of our hearts by sin. But the gospel of Jesus Christ, yeah, it will. Reading further on, he says, "For you see your calling, brethren." It's basically saying, okay, look around. Not many wise according to the flesh. Not many mighty. Not many noble are called. But God has chosen the foolish things of this world to put to shame the wise. He's saying, okay, look around. Go ahead, look around the congregation. You notice? Not too many smart people here. Not too many nobles, not too many rich people. Not too many mighty people. As a matter of fact, if you look around, it seems that God has chosen fools. He's chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And that's exactly right. If we depend upon our wisdom, if we depend upon anything other than the power of Jesus Christ in a willing heart, it will come to naught. But when we depend upon him, wow, look out. And so, just like Nehemiah, we will find in the next couple of weeks, completes this amazing project of building the wall in Jerusalem in record time. It would be tough for a whole crew with cranes and equipment and stuff to get it done that quickly. He gets it done with goldsmiths and perfume makers and women and priests and the Levites that helped the priests in record time. In the same way that God has turned the world upside down again and again and again through people who are not wise, mighty, noble, but are foolish enough to believe the gospel of Jesus Christ and to live it, to step out in it. That, to me, is the message of chapter 3 of the book of Nehemiah. Now, chapter 4 gives us a little bit more insight in some very specific areas. Chapter 4, they're working away on the wall. They've got people assigned all over to it. The goldsmiths and perfume makers and priests are busy rebuilding the wall and the gates. And we pick it up in verse 1 of chapter 4, and it says, "But it so happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren in the army of Samaria and said, 'What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned?'" Now wait a minute, Pastor. Stones that are burned? Well, it's believed that most of the stonework of Solomon's temple and the wall of Jerusalem originally were limestone. And if you read 2 Kings chapter 25, you find that when Nebuchadnezzar came and overran Jerusalem the last time, that it says he burned the temple and he burned the mighty houses of Jerusalem. And what happens to limestone when it gets heated up to a certain temperature, it begins to crack. And the composition of it changes so that now it's no longer useful for building. Because when you put a load on it, it will collapse rather than be strong. That's the sense in which he's saying these stones were burned. We don't usually think about stones burning, but chemically and physically it changes at a high temperature. Now Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him and said, "Hey, whatever they build, if even a little fox goes up on it, he's going to break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads, and give them as plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity. Do not let their sin be blotted out from before you. For they have provoked you to anger before the builders." What are the attacks of the enemy? First of all, harassment based on our lack of earthly qualifications. Pastor Kevin, what Bible college did you go to? What seminary did you go to? Well, I went to Bible college, 4-year Bible college, Central Bible College, Assembly of God, Springfield, Missouri. Oh, but you never did any postgraduate work? Do you have your master's or doctor of divinity yet, Pastor? No? Oh. Okay. Well, who were you ordained by? Oh, I was ordained by Calvary Chapel of Pittsburgh. Oh, is that a large organization? No, it's a church. Oh. That's the kind of stuff that happens to us. Oh, so you think you know more about the Bible and about God than this person or that learned person or the priest that, was the pastor of your church growing up or anything like that? You know more than he does? Because you got saved. See what happens? You're teaching a Bible study in your house? Who are you to do that? I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, full of His Holy Spirit. Yeah, but have you gone to seminary? See what happens? Harassment based on our lack of earthly qualifications for what God has called us to do. And what's Nehemiah's response? In his prayer, he recognizes that this isn't an attack on him, it's an attack on the Lord. The Lord called him to rebuild this. He's not a master builder either. He's not a carpenter. He's not an engineer. That's not who God sent. He was the guy who tasted the king's wine. That's what his qualification for rebuilding the wall was. Except that God had called him.